Welcome back to Writing Children's Books. Today we are discussing book covers. So if you are kind of batting around whether or not you want to hire a cover designer, or if you're trying to do it yourself, maybe you have some financial restrictions and you need to do it yourself, this is definitely the video for you. We're going to go over a little bit of both and kind of a few things to keep in mind. So first of all, if you're trying to decide whether or not you're going to hire a designer, then keep these things in mind. If you have someone who's done your illustrations, you can use those illustrations as part of your cover design, especially for children's books. Very common, and it does cut down on the cost significantly. Now, when you're choosing a designer, I wouldn't necessarily go with an illustrator. There's a little bit different background, a little bit different experience, and that experience can be extremely crucial to you. So a designer has a better idea of more of the marketing aspect and the visual take on the cover itself. Now, illustrators, they're fantastic. They've got their own niche. They've got their own talents. But a cover design and an illustrator, not necessarily the same thing. The cover design is going to be more focused on the marketing aspect, which is extremely crucial because you all know we definitely judge a book by its cover. And that alone can make or break a sale. I can look at a book and be like, I'm not going to buy that. It doesn't look good to me. And most of us are that way. So choosing the right designer can make a world of a difference. You can still be successful in creating your own book, but there are some key aspects that you want to go by, you want to include. And we'll go over that in just a minute. But before I dive into that section of this video, I do believe that it's extremely important to know how to choose a cover designer. First of all, there are several different areas, several different locations, resources that you can use to hire a cover designer. You can go to Fiverr, which is very common, especially if you have financial restrictions. I'm going to come back to that in just a second though, because I have a little asterisk, a little warning for you on Fiverr. Now you've got Fiverr, you've got Upwork, you have Elance, you have 99 Designs. There's a lot of different places that you can hire from. There's Etsy. If you can go on Facebook, there's a ton of Facebook communities that have illustrators all over in them, or cover design individuals that are all over in them. Now again, if you're going to do cover design, you can use an illustrator to create the picture or the illustration for it, but definitely hire a designer to form and mold your cover itself. Okay, coming back to Fiverr. Now, Fiverr has a lot of awesomeness to it, and cover design can be one of them, is one of them, but you need to be careful with hiring from Fiverr because a lot of people are expecting a $5 purchase. And that's not the case if you want a good cover. Whether you're going with Fiverr or you're going with Upwork or you're going with 99 Designs, it's going to be a good chance it's going to be over $100. A decent cover design is going to be over $100, okay? Just know that. And with Fiverr, they charge for, yes, $5 for, something little, and then it just kind of stacks on for the price, the color, the PDF, or the files and everything like that. So the cost does bump up. But if you want a solid design, a solid sellable, marketable product, then I usually suggest Upwork or 99 Designs or something usually other than Fiverr. I have used them and I had success. So if you're careful when you choose them, you could be fine. Okay, now choosing a designer. There are a couple of keys that I suggest. When you're choosing a designer, always ask for samples. To me, that's a given. To you, that's probably also a given. So ask for samples. Ask for 3. And if you're in a specific niche and you already know it, ask for 3 within that niche. If they don't have any, that right there could be a red flag. If they don't have any in the niche, that right there could be a red flag. If they don't have any period, then definitely a red flag. You better get one heck of a deal on that otherwise. But again, if you put all that effort into the interior content of your book, the creation of your book, and all that time, don't just push off the expense of a cover designer. That is so important, and I cannot stress that enough, that if you're going to put all the time into the content, don't just haphazardly do the cover. It needs to be 100%. So when you're considering it, you get your 3 samples from maybe 1 or 2, maybe even 3 different designers. Okay, so you get 3 samples from each. You've got 9 samples, obviously. So 9 samples. With those samples, you go look those books up on Amazon. Okay, so you're researching the book. Yes, you're researching the designer, but you're researching each of their books. Find out what their ranking is, and then once you find out their ranking, then you go and you go through the comments, the reviews, and you decide, are there any that are like specifically to that cover? And if they're talking about the cover, is it good? Is it bad? Is it why they purchased the book? Is it why they didn't purchase the book? And so on. You know, maybe they were hesitant because of it. Since Amazon, you have to purchase the book to do a review. Okay, so once you've done that, you've done a lot of research on that designer already. Then you can make a professionally educated decision, right? Right. You are planning on doing the design yourself. A couple of things that you need to keep in mind. Again, the cover sells the book. More often than not, the cover is the part of the book that's selling it. Yes, you might have some awesome marketing, but we don't have unlimited funds for marketing. So the book has to be eye-catching. A couple of things that help market that book, to help sell the book because it's eye-catching, is a simple design. The simpler the design, oftentimes the better the design. Don't get too creative. You know, you want to be unique, but you want to be simple. It needs to be easy on the eyes. So a couple of things to keep in mind, said that phrase a few times, is the font. You don't want extremely crazy font. Now there's exceptions, most definitely, and I've made them, but usually keep a simple font. You can have a creative font along with 1 or 2 more neutral fonts, and that's fine. They work together. Don't use more than 2 to 3 fonts. And when I say a font, you've got one font family. That font can be script, it can be, it could be regular, it could be bold, it could be italics. So that's, a few different options there. Plus you've got different colors that you can use for that font. You've got different sizes. You can have a 48 point here. You can have the author name as a 24 point. I mean, there's a lot that you can play with just one font. But if you want to mix and match and have the author as one font and then the title or the subtitle as another, that's fine. You can definitely play with it. Just don't get too crazy and don't exceed the 3 fonts. Rule of thumb. Also with that, talking about color, if you're going to use a color, make sure that color either goes back to your brand or back to your series. Going back to that color comment, if you're going to choose a color palette, don't choose more than 2 to 3 colors in that palette, because then it is just overwhelming. It's too much. Unless you have a book about rainbows, you don't need a rainbow of colors. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense. Does that make sense? All right. So again, you've got the font, you've got the different sizes you can use, you've got the italics, you've got the bold, you've got the regular, you have script, you've got the colors, the different color palettes you can change for emphasizing the covers, the font itself or the color, the cover, because you can do a background that's one of the colors in the palette, or you can just change the fonts themselves, the words themselves, the title, the subtitle, also very important. You want it to be legible. You want to stick to 2 to 3 fonts max. You want to stick to 2 to 3 colors max. You don't want to go overboard. And then once you've finished that and you're kind of playing with the title, the subtitle, find something that you can emphasize, because that always brings the title out. Now, the shorter the title, the less likely you're going to need to emphasize part of the title. For example, the emphasis on basketball here. The shorter the title, the less likely. Okay. Now, once you have created your cover, we're going to research again. So yes, we researched at the beginning when we were trying to decide who we were going to hire for a design artist, a cover design artist. And we researched similar niches, or we researched within the similar niche, the books that are similar to us. That's what I was trying to say. Books that are similar to us within the niche. Okay, so we researched those. We have a feel for what we want, and we've created this book cover. Now we need to make sure that it's going to ring true with others out there, that it's not too overwhelming, too complicated, too creative. So you take that cover, you take the PDF of it, and you start to show it to qualified individuals, publishers, other authors, illustrators, and other designers. You can find those in Facebook groups. So easy to find them. So you go look in, you become part of this community, you give input on their covers, and you grab input from them. The more people that you can get input from, the higher the number, the more accurate the percentage is going to be on who like it and who don't like it. So you put out there a couple of covers, maybe you have one, maybe you have two, and you get a feel for what they think about your book cover. Once you do that, then they'll probably come back with, I didn't like the font, or I didn't like the colors. Why'd you choose those colors? What niche are you even going for? I'm so confused. It's hard to take some of those critiques, but I promise you, they are worth it. If I had not taken the critiques on my last book, I definitely wouldn't have the sales. Absolutely not. I had to pretty much suck it up and make those changes to the book that I was getting advised on. So I kept the fonts the same. There were some questions on the fonts. There were questions on how I highlighted it. I just went, it was too busy, and you don't want busy. You want simple. It needs to be easy on the eyes. So I made these tweaks that from these suggestions. And now I didn't make all of the tweaks, because some of people, there was like one or two people that had negative comments to say about it, and I definitely took it into consideration, and swallowed my pride a little bit, but took it into consideration. They were from a complete different niche, like completely different. So I didn't take their advice as heavily as I did from someone who was in my niche, that I felt they had a better understanding of who I was marketing to than these other two people. And there were about 20 people in this other group, which gave me a better understanding of what my crowd, my audience, really did want. And so I stuck with more of their suggestions than I did these other people. Great suggestions if I was going into their niche, not so great going into mine. It's extremely important to listen to the suggestions, especially those who you feel are qualified to make those suggestions on your book cover. And then once you've done, make the tweaks. If you don't make the tweaks, you can have, like I said before, could have spent all the time and perfecting that interior content and then just thrown together a cover. Nobody will even see your book, because nobody's going to read a book where the cover sucks. To bluntly put it that way, that's true. My book would not have sold, it would barely have sold any copies had I not made those tweaks. And even though I was content with the cover that I started with, the cover that I now have, I love it. It is so much better. And I had to pretty much swallow my pride and take into consideration some of the critiques that they were giving me. So I went from a mediocre cover to a rock solid cover that's going to catch the eye of the individuals that I want to see it. So I can make those sales, and so they can actually benefit from the book. You're making the book for a reason. Yes, you want to make some sales, but you're trying to help somebody, right? If it's a fiction book, maybe you're trying to entertain somebody, but there's a reason you made that book. And don't let one little measly obstacle of your pride, or maybe a little bit extra effort, get in your way. Because once you crawl over that or get past that obstacle, you've made success. Really, failure after failure, just keep going. Get past the obstacle, and once you've overcome that, that's when you're lucky enough to hit success. For more help on publishing your children's book, help on marketing tips, and even creating your book itself, then go ahead and subscribe now to Writing Children's Books, and I will continue to provide this information for you. More and more valuable information. If you are an author, looking for marketing avenues and you would like either your children's book read or you would like an author interview, then contact me on my other channel, Reading Children's Books, and we can do just that. Of course, that is solely for children's books, and I hope this was helpful. Definitely subscribe, and if you have more questions, you can either leave it in the comment section or contact me directly at publisher@childrenwritingchildrensbooks.com.